You know, private members' bills are always an interesting exercise in this Assembly. I don't know how many of the people that are following this through live streaming or reading Hansard understand that government cabinet members can put forward a bill at any time. They can develop it today and put it on the table tomorrow. Not that that's their process, but they have that leeway. But private members, which is everyone that's not in cabinet, are assigned their position through a random draw back in the summer. So in the middle of July, we had our names pulled from a hat, and that determines the position that we're in. And secondly, we're required to basically have our ideas in by mid-September. And they can change a little bit. You can switch positions and change a little bit, but essentially that's pretty much it. So for those of us that are private members, we're trying in September to broadcast, to think forward to the spring, or in our case, into the fall, what will be relevant and urgent and necessary. Not all the time, but gladly more often than not. We do get members who bring forward and support private members' bills that they're really passionate about. And I would say this is one of these bills. The member for McKay-Nose Hill has worked hard on this bill. He's reached out to other caucuses. He's sent out descriptive notes. He has tried to explain and work with people to alleviate their fears, and I commend him for that. Clearly, this is a great passion for him, and I'm really pleased to see someone, one, get a draw that's good enough that he's actually going to get it debated, because there will be about 4 of those in this whole year, and 2, follow through with a pretty fine take at it. Lots of times we're in a rush and don't really know what we're doing, and the bills are not as of high a standard as we'd like. And this member worked hard on this, and I want to acknowledge that. So it's a bit of a disappointment that he's getting a bit of a pile on from the first couple of speakers, because I think this bill, I didn't start out thinking I was going to support it, but the more I've looked at it, the more I thought, yeah, no, I think he's on the right track here, and for a couple of reasons.
Have you been out to the birds?
Yes, actually, my father's family comes from Turner Valley, Black Diamond area, which isn't that far to get onto the prairies, and I go to southern Alberta every year, every summer as a... Well, no need to get snarky over there. Oh yes, Madam Speaker, you'd like to hear about this, wouldn't you? But I do make a point of going there, because there's just something about that landscape that pulls you to it. Where you can stand outside at night, and from where I used to stay, I could see the storm coming over Monarch, which was about 15 miles away. So there's just something about that big sky country that's really important to Albertans. No, our big sky country. Sorry, I'm not giving that one away to Saskatchewan. So what is it about this bill that I support? Well, a couple of things. First of all, the recognition of the need for habitat preservation and wildlife corridors, although they're not mentioned here, I'm assuming it, for certain species, actually a number of species. And it's interesting because we get all kinds of representation in this House, and there's very strong representation currently through the Wild Rose for farming families and a rural lifestyle, which is great. That's what representation's all about. But we don't get very many caribou in here, or elk, or various other kinds of wildlife, because, they're not human and they don't get elected. But it's hard to get a voice representing them into this place as well, and I would know that because I've tried. So I appreciate the fact that it's recognized with this bill that those grasslands are a habitat for certain species, and We need to be aware of that as we plan forward into the future. And this government is capable of planning with a very far horizon on industry and development, but seems to have no horizon for planning on environmental protection, wildlife protection and preservation, ecological protection and preservation. I'm a Liberal. Dying breed in Alberta, I grant you. But to me, and I'm a Liberal because I seek that balance. And it strikes me that we don't have a balance in this area right now, that it's those scales of justice that you always see are imbalanced. And we have an over permissiveness, a very permissive environment toward development. And this bill is trying to say we don't have very much of that traditional grassland left. Let's try and hang on to it. And even at that, the bill's not saying, nobody shall ever step on it or do anything with it. If I'm reading the bill correctly, it does say, whatever's going on there now can continue to go on. In fact, if I might quibble, in section something sub 3, 82.4 sub 3, nothing in this part is to be construed as precluding the exploration for and development of oil and gas resources, because God forbid in this province we would preclude oil and gas resource development. Oh no, how could we possibly have 1 inch of land that isn't open to oil and gas development? And sure enough, this honourable member has followed through on that sacred, it's actually not sacred to me, but seems to be sacred to the government members, that sacred action that they will carry through and develop every square inch. And this bill does carry through with that. So I'm a little confused about why the official opposition is so exercised about this. So one was the recognition of the habitat and how little of it remains pristine and also remains public. And the whole concept of this land is not the government's. It's held in trust for all Albertans. And I noticed when the minister was talking, again, this government and the cabinet tends to assume an entitlement to which they have not earned. So the minister says that the land will be sold only if it's not needed for government needs. Well, too bad, because it may not be about what the government needs. It may be about the public having that land in trust. And I think this bill is recognizing that, and I want to support that. In the sale of lands, one of the things that unprompted when I talk to my seniors, this is one of the issues that they are particularly adamant about, is greater transparency for the sale of public lands. And I'm not sure where that comes from, because when I ask how many people grew up on a farm, it's not a large percentage. It's, maybe a third, 20% of the people in the room. But there's very strong feelings that this should be a much more public process, much more transparent, and they approve of what has been put forward in Bill 202, that there is a public notification, that there is a period of time for people to react, and there is an opportunity for people to be heard, yay or nay, on a particular sale of public lands. I am curious about why there is an assumption that those holding grazing leases should, it seems from the government point of view, be given control over all grasslands. I just don't agree with that. I think the job they're doing is fine. I've got nothing against that. I just don't think I'd hand over the rest of it. So, I don't think that they're the best or the only stewards. And in this case, I think they have a conflict of interest. And that I was not impressed by the letter they sent, but I imagine they didn't care too much about impressing me. But the letter that was sent in September is, yeah, let me just not, can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. We'll just move along there. That 10 minutes is just gone in a snap, isn't it? Okay.
Thank you. The